Motorola was expected to soon launch its budget and mid-budget segment devices from the G7 series. Now a new leak has put a date to it. So in this video, let's take a look at when these phones will be launching and what are the specs and prices and also the look and design of these smartphones. You're watching India Today Tech, I'm Rahul Sethi. So Motorola is expected to launch 4 different smartphones in the G7 series: the G7 Play, the G7 Power, the G7 Plus and the basic G7 phone. All these smartphones will have different specs and will have different prices, but what's common is the design. Yes, Motorola has finally brought the water drop style notch to its smartphones and the G7 series will be all about it. Now last year Motorola used a 400 series processor and that weighed down a lot of sales on the smartphone. This time around I think it's set to change because the chipset that the phone will be using is a Snapdragon 632 with a 4GB RAM and 64GB storage on the base variant. The phone is said to have a 6.24-inch Full HD Plus panel with a water drop style notch and will have thin bezels around the screen. The phone will come with a dual camera setup at the back with 12 megapixel primary and a 5 megapixel secondary sensor and an 8 megapixel camera at the front for selfies. The phone will run Android 9 Pie out of the box and will have a 3000 mAh battery. Now many leaks even say that it could be using a Snapdragon 636 in order to better compete smartphones in its price segment. Next, the Moto G7 Plus will be a slight upgrade over the G7 in that it will have a Snapdragon 636 or a Snapdragon 660 chip with 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage on the base variant. The cameras will also find an improvement with a 16 megapixel primary sensor having an f1.7 aperture but a similar depth sensor accompanying the primary camera. The selfie camera will also have a better 12 megapixel resolution, but overall the phone will look very similar to the G7 with a 6.24-inch display having Full HD Plus resolution. Now it's obvious that the G7 Plus will be priced higher compared to the G7, but there are 2 other smartphones that will be priced lower than the G7 and that is the G7 Power and the G7 Play. The G7 Power will also look the same as the G7 but it will have stripped down specs in that the display on the phone will have HD Plus resolution and not Full HD, although the size remains same at 6.2 inches. Also, the phone will have a slightly inferior processor like the Snapdragon 632 or even the Snapdragon 625, or Motorola could be using a 400 series processor on it. But the main highlight will be the battery having a 5000 mAh capacity. The phone will also have a single 12 megapixel camera at the back and an 8 megapixel camera at the front. Also note that the base variant will have 3GB of RAM and 32GB of storage, although we expect it to be expandable on a triple card slot. Now if we talk about Moto G7 Play, it will have a smaller display and have lesser resolution as well compared to the G7. It will have a 5.7-inch HD Plus panel, and if you talk about the cameras, it will be a single 13 megapixel camera at the back and an 8 megapixel shooter at the front. The phone will have a smaller 3000 mAh battery and the build quality may not be same as that of the G7 or the G7 Power. But the best thing about the G7 series this time around is that all the smartphones will have turbo power support, which means that you get fast charging across devices. This is a great thing as most of the smartphones in the budget segment, especially under 10,000 or under 50,000 rupees, still don't come with fast charging. And Motorola One Power is one of the only such devices to come with an 18-watt adapter to support fast charging. Another great thing about all these devices is that they will run Android 9 Pie out of the box, and with Motorola giving you very near stock Android interface, all these devices will be running a very close to stock experience, very similar to phones like the Xiaomi Mi A2 or the Nokia 6.1 Plus that run the Google Android One project, although they may not guarantee you updates for the next 2 years. Now while the latest leak says that these phones will be launched in Brazil on February 7, there is no word on the India launch as of now. Before March end, and the G7 Plus and the G7 Play will come later this year. In fact, the leak also says that the price of the smartphone, the G7, will be about 15,000 rupees and the G7 Power will cost you about 12,000 rupees for their base variants. So Motorola might be able to make a comeback with these smartphones in the budget segment market, especially with their water drop style notch, fast charging and much better stock Android interface that's optimized even on low-end hardware. But it is late to the party as most of the smartphones in this segment are already having this kind of design. In fact, Samsung is also looking to capture this market with the M10 and the M20 and the M30 that it will be launching on January 28. Do let me know what you think about this in the comment section below and about all the Motorola smartphones that will be launching real soon. And if you've liked this video, hit the thumbs up button and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel to get latest videos on technology, smartphones and other gadgets like this. Thank you for watching.